Finding screen addiction is taking a toll on children. In fact, researchers finding the average 8 to 10-year-old spends nearly 8 hours a day looking at some kind of screen. Older children and teenagers are spending more than 11 hours a day. And there's a big question coming up in a new documentary called Web Junkie that's calling this to light and wondering, what's the impact on our kids? Dr. Chuck Williams is the ideal guest to talk to about this. He's an educational psychologist and director of graduate studies at Lincoln University. And this is something that you've researched, Dr. Chuck. Media's impact on children. You've researched this for more than a decade. What is the true impact of screen addiction on kids?
Of course, as always, thanks for having me to talk about a topic which is very important to me. As you mentioned, I've researched this going back since like 2000. And I think what parents and caregivers and even educators don't realize is that what kids watch, what they see, they model, they emulate. So, for example, if they're playing violent video games, they're more likely to act out what they're seeing violently against a peer, disrupting a classroom, which obviously cuts into instruction time. And I know a lot of parents, because I work with so many of them, they think that media is sort of innocuous. So if a kid is playing a game for hours, at least he's not hurting anyone, hurting himself, and he's not getting into trouble. But he is. And the most important thing is when you're not having face-to-face interaction, you're not developing social skills, and we need that both in the classroom and in life.
Certainly. Dr. Chuck, Gregg and I were talking about this both as parents. There's this new documentary coming out that looked at China specifically. And what they found is that many of these kids are coming to view the real world as fake. And Gregg, I know that's something that we've talked about. It's kind of a big concern.
Yeah. What about that, Dr. Chuck? I mean, they get a very skewed and unreal view of the world.
And Gregg, let me tell you how this is connected in some ways to our violence problem in America, in places like Chicago and Philadelphia and beyond, because when you think that life is like a video game where you push a button and you get to start all over, well, guess what? That doesn't really reflect reality. If you harm someone, they're going to be harmed. If you shoot someone and kill them, there's no reset button. You don't get to push the button on the Xbox and start all over again. So that detachment from reality can also fuel our violence problem in America.
All right, so let's move to another subject. What if young kids use their screen time, Dr. Chuck, to watch Sesame Street, incredibly popular television show? Is it as good as preschool?
Right. You know what? People like to dump on the media, right? They always say only bad stuff comes out of the media, but that's not true. There's good media and there's bad media. An example of that would be PBS and Sesame Street. I grew up watching it. Poor kid in North Philly, didn't go to the best schools, but Big Bird and the Grouch and all that, they taught me my ABCs and shapes and numbers and colors and how to get along with different kids. So you can learn a lot from Sesame Street. And because our schools do such a poor job, unfortunately, by and large, we need programs like PBS Educational Media that can really teach our kids the basics.
So let me ask you about that, Dr. Chuck, because this was written about in the Washington Post. And this is a study that's being done by the National Bureau of Economic Research. And a lot of people disagree with it because they were just looking at areas of the country where people potentially had access to watch Sesame Street, right? So we didn't know if they actually watched it, but if they did, they found that the kids were doing better at school. Some people have problems with this study. That said, you need to bottom line this for parents, okay? I got this 10-month-old baby. I need to know if I hand him the iPad with Sesame Street on it, is Elmo okay screen time, for 20 minutes a day, which I won't do, he's 10 months old. But is that okay then for parents? Like if they let their kids do that on an iPad versus something else?
Jen, as a new parent, you should be concerned, very concerned. What's important is both the quality of media and the amount of time that they spend with those electronic screens in front of their faces. So as long as you limit the time, I would say no more than an hour a day, the younger the better, and make sure it's quality stuff. Right. But more importantly, they got to get out and meet face to face.
I like that. They got to get out playing in the park as we do on a regular basis. He is not sending text messages yet. Unfortunately, he's not on Twitter, but I encourage our viewers to follow you, Dr.
Not
Chuck.
yet.
I know. I'm already thinking about it. It's a really scary world thinking about it. Dr. Chuck, great to have you as always. I encourage our viewers to follow you on Twitter, though, because they can always learn a lot. Thank you very much.